What's up? What's up? What's up? Welcome to episode 24 of Domiciled, the podcast that explores the subculture of truck drivers, as well as logistics professionals bringing their stories to the masses. I'm your host, Scott Cleary, and before we kick things off, let's talk a little bit about our friends at Purple Squirrel. So, Purple Squirrel represents freight agents, freight brokerages, and freight forwarding companies. If you'd like to earn more, reduce your liability, and grow your career, you should have a chat with Ryan Smith over at Purple Squirrel about becoming an independent agent. They represent kind of like our guest, independent agent, little foreshadowing. But they represent multiple broker and forwarding companies, allowing them to provide you with several career offers. You have options. Let them advocate on your behalf. So that's our show with Purple Squirrel. Go check it out. Paul, buddy, what's good, my guy? What's happening?
What isn't good, man? I mean, we're rocking and rolling. We're having a blast.
Rocking and rolling.
Oh, he's hydrating. Where are you coming to us from, Scott?
What's up?
Where are you coming to us from? This is a little different backdrop.
Yeah, this isn't my normal domicile. If you anyway, I'm in San Antonio at the TIA Capital Ideas Conference. We're actually going to be hacking it up on the golf course at the same place that they held the Valero tournament. We're at the JW. Nice spot, beautiful. I actually got in a little early today. I hit the pool area, which is not just a pool. They got a lazy river. I had lunch. Needed lunch. Lazy river. Did a lap around that. Took about 20 or so minutes. Big lap. Then they have water slides. So I hit those too. Then caught up with my brother. Shout out Hunter. He's a hot shot bartender on the vineyard, thinking about getting into sales soon. So I bounced some stuff off him. He's got he's about to hit his grind for the summer. But that's how my day's gone. I can't wait for the shows. Biggest one of the year. I'm amped. Yes, that's what's going on with me right now, man.
That's solid. I think my experience has been bartenders make pretty good sales folks. So stoked for your brother. Sounds pretty fun. So let's talk about this. Over under tomorrow. Are you doing 140?
140. You're cute. So it's probably going to be a scramble. Let's go over under on balls lost.
That's fair. I was going to say you're playing with the great stick himself, Parisi, are you not?
I wish. So you know what? Out of being professional, and I can't wait to cut this and send it to him because I'm just going to send it directly to him. I haven't brought this up, but he is always about, and you remember this from your Revenova days, Scott, and then when Zach lived down here, Scott, you're going to come down, you're going to come golf with me, we're going to go to the club. He's a member of a club at Fort Myers. We're going to golf. I live like 2 hours from the guy. So I keep busting his chops. Yeah, okay, Jeff, whenever, whatever. You said that before. Last Christmas, he's like, no, we're doing it. I'm down January after New Year through March. We're doing it. You and me, we're going. We're gonna have a business meeting on Thursday and Friday. So I'm like, hey, yeah, no problem. So a couple weeks after Christmas, hey, Jeff, when do you want to do that? Oh, yeah, let me think about what we're going to do. All right. A couple weeks later, hey, Jeff, so can't wait for the golf thing. When are you thinking about doing it? I got some stuff coming up. Let's plan it out. Oh, yeah. No, let me get back. A couple weeks later, I just sent him my availability. Never heard back. Nothing. So I just let it go. I said, I'm going to send him my availability. It's like sales, right? If the prospect's interested, you'll know. You can only touch them so many times before it's too much. So I still haven't golfed with the great stick, and he's probably trying to avoid me because he knows how I'm not that good.
Yeah,
but
really bring down that bring up really that
yeah, but I'm the glue guy, Paul.
You are a glue guy.
I'm a glue guy. Locker room presence, veteran presence. Not as much as Jeff.
Veteran presence.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about.
Gotta set the tone.
Set the tone. Absolutely. Bring the lumber. Look, all I'm saying is my favorite part actually is Jeff saying, "Oh yeah, but Scott, you're a hockey player. How did you?" And I watching your face be like, "I'm awful at this. It doesn't translate. I'm really not that good." And just I always laugh at that. I miss those days. You guys had a lot of fun over at Revenova.
Well, that's what because he's like, yeah, you're a hockey player. Like, you're just a slap shot golf swing. I'm like, yeah. He's like, all the hockey players, the hockey guys, they're NHL guys. They're great at golf. I'm like, they're elite athletes, Jeff.
I played club.
I played club in college. I know I look the part, and I'm so flattered that you think I should be good. But I know, and I could be good. I just don't play it. You got to play it a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what they say, actually, I think as a customer, you look at a sales guy and you go, I don't really want him to be that good at golf, because that means he might not be great at his job. Right.
Right? Yeah, maybe.
There's certain jobs, I think, where you kind of want to, and so I like to ride the line of like, oh, I have an excuse, I bring this, right? Yeah. So anywho, great that you're down there. Great that you're having fun. I'm coming to you from sunny Chicago, as always.
Yep. Yeah.
Where it is super sunny and very cold. I think it's in the 30s, 39. It's creeping up. Look at that. Would you look at that?
We're getting better.
Yeah, we're getting better. Start talking about the weather. Isn't that great? No, but in all seriousness, no. It is really exciting gearing up for conference season here.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I know we don't go to the same conferences as much anymore. Bummer. But,
I know.
One of these days. But aside from that, I mean, we got a pretty great guest today, don't we?
We do. And real quick, I've been pumping them a lot. They might as well give us some money to be on the show. But shout out KCH, some more swag. I'll be repping the gear on the golf course tomorrow, the hat for some luck. But great t-shirt. I know you got yours too. Don't worry, we'll make you dig it out. I'm debating whether or not to make it a gym shirt or not, but it's kind of nice. I think I'm gonna let it be.
It's already a gym shirt. Yeah, the only shirt I didn't touch is my conniption.
The conniption. Yeah, I don't know if that's made to be a gym shirt.
I don't know. It looks good. Looks good. Shout out to our friends.
Hey, Abby Nail, Knichel, Chrissy Knichel. Maybe we'll get her on too. Anyway, yeah. So you're right. It's time to bring on the guest, I think. So folks, this epi, we bring to you another podcaster this time who actually runs SPI Chaney. Do you know who he is yet? And isn't a driver himself, but works closely with many drivers and has spent a lot of windshield time in some autonomous vehicles. Not something you hear every day. At a company that he used to work out called Gatic. I think I pronounced that right. So he's an agent for SPI, big friend of Revanova's, loves to learn, stay active, and smash trail mix with M&Ms on road trips. Welcome to the show, Nation. Wow,
nationwide.
Nathan Chaney, Nathan Chaney, what's up, my guy? How we doing?
Hey, man. Welcome to Texas. And Paul, sorry you're still up in the cold white north. But you'll get there eventually. Scott and I are enjoying 70s, 80s degrees right now. So,
yeah. Somebody's got to guard the wall in the north, That's
yeah, they picked the 5'8" guy to do that. Yeah.
That's it.
You're strong though. Jon Snow wasn't that tall.
Go for the kneecaps.
Yeah. Well, it's about head height for me, so I'm good.
I just was looking at your profile, Paul, and noticed that you were previously just right at Revanova as well. So that must be where you all knuckleheads kind of got together, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, there's no real other way that two people like us get to know each other aside from working together. I don't think Scott.
We're pretty different, I guess.
You don't say, Scott. But what gets us there is that we both are just total goofballs.
I
believe Nathan used the word knuckleheads. Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah, knuckleheads. I prefer goofball because I think it has a certain whimsical air to it.
Right, it's almost charming.
Oh, that guy's don't worry about him. He's a goofball. That's fine. Way better than
Knuckle.
But yeah, that's where I was, David. That's where I was.
Yeah. So thanks for having me on. Yes, I am also a podcaster. Yes, I have an SPI agency, and the agency uses Revanova because SPI is a customer.
Smart.
So I thought, we could talk a little bit freight. We can talk a little bit life and school and business and whatever. What's the typical gauntlet y'all put your guests through? Y'all got a standard run of show?
Sure. I mean, we definitely want people know who you are. Of course, I actually met a guy, Sonny, by the pool, works at a brokerage out west. It was kind of in transit, so I missed the name. In transit, I missed the name of exactly where he works, but he's going to come by our booth, say hello. But I said we're having Nathan Chaney on the show tonight. He was like, "Oh, okay." So your name gets around, sir. But no, so even that being the case, we want people to know about you, what you're all about, what you like, and then we're going to get into a little bit of things you care a lot about. Then we do a little bit of story time. We can sprinkle that in at the end or wherever we feel. Some crazy wild stuff you've dealt with or want to share.
Okay. All right. So I am coming to you live from Texas, where I've born and raised. I've never lived outside of the state of Texas. Was born down close to the border of Mexico. So I'm Hispanic. My family is from Mexico. I got the name Chaney through complicated legal things, but I was actually born Nathan Gonzalez. And when people say, "Oh my gosh, you were born to do this with a name like Chaney," you came out with his name, supply chain. You were born. I'm like, I was legally adopted through the legal system of America
okay.
to do this, because supply Gonzalez does not have quite the same ring to it. So I'm born and raised all throughout Texas. Grew up in a little teeny tiny farm in East Texas. Teeny tiny farm. It was like 30 acres, and we had some cows and horses and tractor and stuff. But what was teeny tiny about it is that town had, I think, like the largest Jersey cow dairy in the US, which is like the brown cows, like Elsie, the Borden cow. I think it's 30,000 head of cattle on that dairy. And there was like 300 people that lived in the town. And so
Oh my God.
my graduating class from high school was about 30 students. So that was my whole upbringing, was out in the sticks. And so I was on the golf team, the tennis team, the debate team, the one-night play team, editorial, UIL. It was like you had nothing to do but school growing up. So that was my whole life. And you were talking about golf in the opening a while ago. So that was like every Tuesday in the spring, I was out of class for a golf tournament. Every Thursday, I was out for a tennis tournament. So I didn't do very good in the spring due to being out for sports. But it was great because there was not much else to do in town other than school. My mom was a teacher's aide. My dad was a bus driver. So like literally everyone's life was the school. So therefore academics and education and learning always played like a really big role in my life, as well as extracurriculars and just doing all the other stuff, which came in just as handy, as you might imagine, as the actual books and learning that you do in school. The golf, like if you're going to go into business, you need to know how to play golf. And it turned out that was a really useful skill, that I've been able to leverage, not realizing it would afford me something later on in my life. So did that, went to junior college to start out with because again, graduating class of 30 something kids. I wasn't ready to go to a campus of like 30,000. And so happened to go to like one of the largest junior colleges in America, population of like 10,000 students, still had dorms, football team, golf team, tennis team. I was an RA my freshman and sophomore year. So
freshman and sophomore, wait, back up real quick. Freshman and sophomore year as an RA. I was senior year, I was an RA. That's a whole other story. Freshman, sophomore, that's tough.
Because it was only freshmen and sophomores. It was a junior college, right?
JUCO.
It was only freshmen and sophomores. So I was the RA for the golf and tennis team dorm. So it was like the golf team was the second floor, tennis team was first floor. And a majority of the students were all international students. Like they were top programs. And so I got this like kind of big college, like big, sort of feel for school, even though it was a junior college. So I'm really grateful for that. And transferred out of there, I got my associate's degree in business administration, not really knowing what I want to do, thought I figured I'd do business. And then when I was leaving, I was asking like the head of the business department, like, what should I go do for my bachelor's degree? I think business administration is really general. It's not going to do much for me. And he was like, oh, you know what? This logistics is like becoming this thing. And up in Denton at the University of North Texas, they've got this like good logistics program, I hear. You should go check it out. So like the next weekend or two, I went up, did the little campus tour. I always tell people that the main colors are like green and white. And at the time, my favorite color was green. And I thought logistics was basically just like playing in the, like I did as a kid, right? Playing with our Lego trucks and whatever. It's like, sounds like logistics. I'll do that. And so that was it. Like that was the only college I really considered, the only major I really considered doing. And so that kind of like set the tone for the rest of everything else. And, so I did an internship with SPI Logistics. When they opened up their new place here in DFW on the airport, I helped to like build an Excel-based yard management system for them. And I like did some projects with their little 5S team. And I rewrote like and wrote all the SOPs for the whole stinking place as part of my internship. And then the professor got me over to PepsiCo for a second internship. And that's one of the big things I recommend to anyone that's in schools, whatever. It's like, do as many internships as you can, because it's like trying on shoes or dating, right? It's like, you don't just buy the first pair of shoes. You want to go kind of try out some, right? So second internship was PepsiCo, and my job there, other than like eating Cheetos and drinking Mountain Dew, was measuring the carbon footprint of all of the business units of PepsiCo. So I was talking with Quaker and Frito-Lay and those guys about the Tropicana train. Like, there is a Tropicana train, and calculating the carbon emissions of that train, right? So got to see a lot of that, which was fun. And I got to see like the 3PL provider side from being at SIVA. And then I got to see like what it's like when you call up JB Hunt, you say, I need to know your fleet statistics and your miles per gallon. And are you part of SmartWay? And they'd be like, sir, yes, sir. We'll get that right away. And so I got to be able to see what it's like to be the shipper, right? So I think it was really good, just happenstance, to be able to see before even graduating what it's like to be on the service provider side and on the shipper side. I would have loved to have stayed on the shipper side, but this was 2008 or so when the economy was in the crapper. And so they had a permanent, indefinite hiring freeze there at PepsiCo, and said, you can go get a job. So I ended up getting into the 3PL world again, stayed in 3PL, at Crane, and then at Main Freight. Main Freight was a great experience for me. I got up to branch manager, got to build my own facilities and open them up and start from scratch with no customers and no employees, no racks, no nothing, and build it from up. And so that was a great experience. Then I got over into the shipper side, had an opportunity and went to Texas Instruments. And so I got to run all of their raw materials and everything going into their chip making plants here in Texas. So that was pretty cool. We had literally bars of gold and platinum and all that sort of stuff, because that's what goes into making chips, right? So those were fun. And then I got to spend a little bit of time managing their finished goods distribution center here in the US, which was during COVID time, ironically. And so whenever there was the chip shortage, my warehouse was full of chips, actually, right here in DFW.
Plenty of chips.
So it was all about allocation and, whatnot. So got to see, at this point in my career, I've got to see 3PL stuff for 10 years. I got to dabble in like high tech manufacturing for a little bit. And then I had this random opportunity to go to a startup, Gatic, as you mentioned a while ago, making autonomous vehicles and run their operations here in Texas. And so I did that, because who doesn't want to go work for a Silicon Valley tech startup, with equity stuff, and you're messing around with self-driving cars, right, and trucks. So did that for a little bit as well. So got to see what that sort of high-tech Silicon Valley tech space is like too. And then after that, went and jumped off and did my own thing. And I've been doing that for a couple of years now. So I know I've like commanded the microphone here a bit, maybe went a little bit too in depth for you, but
not at all, man.
I'm going to pause to take a drink and let you all, anything standing out, any questions?
I know I got something, but Paul, I know you want to go.
Yeah, I mean, I think something that stands out to me, Nathan, is there are very few people that get to sit on both sides, right? Usually, if you're in this, the usual path that I saw and have seen is I'm on carrier sales, I'm at a brokerage, and like this is even for folks. It's funny you mentioned 08. There are a lot of people that got in, right, and they worked their way up in a brokerage, probably on the operations side, and then something came along and they went shipper side, and that was their exposure. Right. And there seems to be this progression that way. And I think that it's really interesting that you spent time, right, doing both from an internship standpoint, and then had that understanding, and then went over to 3PL and stayed in that space for a bit. And then now coming here, I think full circle, it makes a lot of sense with some of our interactions, just your kind of innate understanding of this space, right? Because you seem to be one of those people I've talked to that you don't actually have to say it. You can tell that you know what you're doing, usually by the questions you ask, right? I think that's typically a really good tell of someone having an understanding of what's going on. I guess the question that I have for you off the top of my head is really, when you look at kind of that journey you just laid out, at any point in time, were you like, oh, this is where this is going? or were you just kind of, one step at a time? Here, here's the next obvious opportunity.
Yeah. I I always had the design of being an entrepreneur. I always knew I was going to have my own business. My retirement plan has always been I'm going to have a couple of companies. I didn't know what they were, had no idea what the industry would be, making widgets or selling my body on the corner. I didn't know what it would be, but it would be I'm going to be my own boss somehow. And these like businesses I have are going to be what, are going to be what, get me paid when I'm old, right? But I had no plan of how to get there other than I'm just going to accumulate ideas and experiences and connections and then just see where it goes. And my career path in general was typically just kind of not chasing money, because I've never asked for a raise. I've never actually pursued like I want money, but I just kind of pursued where there was a new challenge or like a new change of scenery or role or maybe a little bit more money. But it was never like intentional. And what's crazy is, as unintentional as it was, what it kind of came around to is having this really holistic view of the whole supply chain, which who would have thought, I'd come up with this idea for a little company called SPI Chaney, and I would be able to leverage all of those, that education, literally, because I have a degree in it, and the experience from all different parts of the supply chain to try to make a difference and do something cool in the industry.
Yeah, I think that really nails it. You practice that?
Nope.
I know. I was gonna say that's a hell of an answer. You think he'd done this before? Or something.
Yeah, it's like I'm like a podcast host or something.
It's like he's used to being in front of the mic. Oh, cool. No, that is interesting. So you went at it from a standpoint of, again, like you said, you didn't chase the money. So it was a bit more of the, I mean, how do I want to put this? Like if you pursue things that interest you, the money comes, right? Obviously, if you're doing all the things you're doing, you're not broke. Yeah. If you're happy, you'll find the money.
Yeah.
Whereas sales guys, we're just like slamming our heads off walls and like, yeah, money. Anyway,
Scott, not all of us slamming our heads off walls.
I know. My bruises have subsided, but being melodramatic.
I like to say that I'm not a sales guy. Like I'm not cut out for the typical supply, like the sales. I can't do it. Like it's not my game at all.
So given you're an agent, then how do you go about it? That's different than somebody who's pounding the phone trying to get customers. Obviously consultative, knowledgeable, but what makes you different?
I don't actively go pursue business at all. It's like it's here. My little lemonade stand is here on the corner. If you want to walk by and you think I got something going on, you want some, sure. But I want to be a provider of everything in supply chain. So I've done the generic, like just straight up consulting stuff. I've got a lot of connections and referral agreements with lots of people in the industry. So it's like I can walk into any facility and be like, where are your pain points? What do you want to try to accomplish? I could probably help you with half of it, right? And that's what I want. That's what I want for Supply Chaney as a company, as a brand, to be able to do, is have a tool bag of like 20 to 30 tools right here that we kind of like just drop and we like, let's talk about your business. Right. So that's the approach I want to have. As crazy as it sounds, I want to be able to do a little bit for everyone. And if I can't, then I know someone who can. Right.
So you're the I've got a guy.
Yeah.
I like that. Those like you, and I always think those people are like you're the cool kids. Like when you've got a guy, when you're the guy who's like, I've got a guy, you're like, I don't know. I feel like it's this level of respect you've gained because you've created enough relationships, on the serious note, that you, like you said, you can sit down, you can have a business conversation, and you can say, oh, I can, help you with this. I can connect with that person. I have somebody who might have an input on that. And again, it's up to them to use them or not, but you're creating those connections. And the more you do that, with the little bit I've done as far as, in the past year or so of building my own network, expanding my personal brand, with the pod, with just LinkedIn itself, it shows just letting yourself out of your own little self-conscious shell and just being the personality. You like the more you do that, like the more people you can help, the more it's going to come to you. Like you said, organically. You're not out there chasing the business. You're, by making those connections and helping people, that's how you're creating your living.
Yeah. Interestingly, because I like I said, I don't like to be the salesperson. I don't like to ask for money. So I've actually brought on my good longtime close friend and my first podcast guest. The episode is appropriately called, Best Freight Friends. So he and I both have the same logistics degree from UNT. We were in the same business fraternity. And so he's come on because he has a different perspective of things. And so we basically say, like, I'm the one planting seeds and putting a little bit of water in these seeds, building up different programs and initiatives and relationships. And then he's the one coming back behind me, shaking the tree, getting the fruit out, right? Harvesting from it. So that's kind of the team that I've put together. And so I've recently brought him on. His name is Curtis Pogue. So he's my head of growth for SPI Chaney. And so that's kind of the teamwork setup that I'm working with right now. And I've got some interns and some other things, some other folks in the loop, but trying to just stay small and nimble and flexible and have a big network of partners that help out. And SPI, in my sort of agency model speaks to that, because I'm happy to let them take care of the AR, the AP, the legal, the insurance, all of the back end stuff, and just do what I would say is the fun stuff, which is a little bit of that customer interaction, the carrier interaction, the relationship building piece, and leave the back office to SPI. So that's kind of how I want to scale the business in general, is lean on those experts that do what they do really well, and just let me in supply chain kind of be the face.
Very cool. Very cool. It's a different approach for sure than your average agent.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of people that want to start something have a hard time, kind of delegating, right? I think about my uncle started a janitorial business, right? And to the very end, he was still cleaning, right? And I think there's something you've tapped into, which is there's someone that knows how to do something, and I want that person to execute that, and I want to focus on the big picture. I think that's really, really a solid approach. I think even something, most people struggle with, right? Is like, once you build something, you don't really want to, right?
Yeah. And the funny thing is I'm going to have to contend with this in the coming years, but how do I build this thing that's called Supply Chain and has my name in it, and build it as a thing that stands on its own with two legs and operates without me so much, right? So that's going to be the fun little quandary that I get to deal with over time. But right now, like Scott, you mentioned about building your personal brand and all that sort of stuff. So that's what I've been focused on for the last year, is like, hey, what can I do with this? Let's go build a big group of followers and community and do a bunch of cool stuff. So I can have that, that leverage to go accomplish what I want to.
Well,
I was gonna say maybe I can continue where I left off then with.
We went sideways.
So when I left Gaddick, didn't really have much of anything planned. Had money saved up, and I thought, actually, if I back up, I have and had an autonomous vehicle industry idea. I've got an idea, right? And so talked with them, and they're like, hey, you can't go pursue this idea while you're also working here. So I was like, okay, well, if I want to go pursue this idea, I guess I gotta go. That was part of the reason. Ended up going and didn't pursue my idea much. It's still there, but I think it's just too early. And so talked to some folks, and then just ended up being able to go fractional and do some fractional operations leadership stuff with 3PLs and things. And so I got to see what it was like to be a consultant for a little bit. And I never played that role before. I thought about, being a consultant when I was graduating college initially. And then I learned, I remember reading blogs about what it's like to be a consultant. And it was basically like, you make a lot of money, but you're never home to spend it. You come home, wash clothes, wash your clothes, mow your yard, and then you fly back out again on Monday morning. And that just didn't appeal to me sort of at the time. And so I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that. And so never thinking that I always thought consultants are the guys that got gray hair. They've been there, done that, seen everything, right? They are the experts in the room. That's why they're consultants. That I felt like shouldn't be me at like 21 or 22 years old, just graduating college. How am I going to walk into your business and help you do things better. I've never done any of those things myself.
Right.
And then like full circle, 10 to 15 years later, I have done all those things. I have seen all those things. So I'm actually able to add some value, in a lot of different cases. So I did that for a bit and then stumbled upon, brokerage. And honestly, it was because my good friend Curtis now, who at the time had a Landstar agency, he had a fleet of trucks. And I was bored. And so I was like, hey, can I help do some sales stuff for you? Because he was in Santa Fe or he was in Colorado, like enjoying life and running his agency from there. And I was like, well, I'm here in Dallas where obviously there's tons of shippers and tons of 3PLs and warehouses. I'll go, and I go to the transportation club meetings. I go to the CSCP meetings. I'll go, if I can find you some business, then we'll do something. And it turned out I found some business, but that wasn't interested in doing business with Landstar. And so
that can be part of the conundrum with the big agencies, big brokerages, carriers sometimes like that.
Yeah. And there's definitely like a love-hate or like a hate relationship, I think. And when it comes to Landstar and older, like traditional logistics managers that have been burned a couple of times by some bad agents. And so basically that's where I was like, it was like, hey, I've got a good bucket of business. I like you and I trust you. We've built this relationship over years. I could award you this business, but not with Landstar on your business card. And I was like, okay, so if I go open up my own agency, then we've got a deal. He's like, yeah, sure. So that's when I went out and I actually went and did a little bit of dating around with different, with different brokers to figure out what agency I wanted to open up with. And this, Scott and Paul, you're going to love this part. I picked SPI. A big part of it was because of Revenova, because the TMS. I'll tell you where to. I'll send you the address where I send my check later.
Yeah.
So, but
I'll send that right to the marketing team.
It was when I looked at what other people were using, like Aljax and all these other older, TMSs, I was like,
name them.
This seems like a pain. I want to do this work and I want to kind of have this brokerage business stuff, but I want to make it as easy on myself as possible. And so Revenova being a clean interface, kind of built on Salesforce, like being a fresh sort of look, built for like modern times, I guess you could say, was really, really helpful. And the other bit was that SPI is based in Canada and they're the stinking nicest people ever. Yeah. And so I'm like, I've never met like an angry or an impatient or an unhappy Canadian. So
you didn't talk to a Western farmer. That's why.
Then anyway, so that was basically how I based that decision. And the revenue splits and all that sort of stuff all worked out nicely. And so I've been with SPI now for like a year or two and have enjoyed that relationship. But that brokerage and that transportation piece is just a small little piece of the pie. Whereas obviously other brokers in the network, all they do is broker and move freight. So
right.
Yeah.
So putting your eggs all in one basket.
Yeah, this guy likes to diversify that portfolio there.
Yeah,
sure.
So real quick, curious about the Gaddick thing, right? So you said you worked at the autonomous trucks, you have an idea, and that's kind of one of the things. Like autonomous trucks, is it a thing? Is it not? Or is it gonna happen? Is it just gonna be line haul? Will it just be local delivery? Is it completely a fugazi? What's your take on the autonomous trucks and why?
Yeah. And I'm actually like actively an advisor for an autonomous truck company still now.
So you don't hate them. Got it.
Yeah, I don't hate them. I'll admit I drive a Tesla. I'm that guy, but I also have a Jeep Wrangler and go off-roading and stuff too. So I feel like I'm balanced, right? So I embrace kind of the innovative new stuff. And I also like, getting my hands a little bit greasy too. So, what the use case that makes the most sense for like autonomous trucks right now is currently short haul, drayage, private site, yard moves, that sort of stuff, big intermodal yard movements. Those are all the kind of like use cases that it's like a kind of a no brainer because there's not much public traffic in those areas. You've got the guys like Kodiak and Aurora and Torque and all those guys that are doing the long haul 250-mile runs between Dallas and Houston type stuff. I think that makes a lot of sense too. Because it's just a repeat, just wash, rinse, and repeat run, right? The I think the hardest part is actually what was going on, the nut that Gaddick is trying to crack, which is the inner city sort of high traffic in the city, making deliveries on box trucks. That's the tough problem, because you've got the most erratic drivers, the most turns, the most pedestrian type traffic in those environments. So that's a tough one. I would say the more out in the sticks, the more on a highway, interstate, the more in a private type facility, the easier it is going to be to incorporate that technology. And I would say there's two levels also of it. There's there's no driver anywhere in the truck at all, right? It's totally self-driving. That's one level. It's called level 5. And then there's like the driver assist features, which I think a lot of companies should really consider, given the amount of fatalities and wrecks and accidents that occur, and just the nature of driving a truck for 10 hours, right? And just the amount of risk that's involved there. If you had all of the actuators, all the sensors, all the compute power on board with that truck, and the driver does fall asleep and it can take over and pull him over safely, come on. I mean, it's an investment, but it's like every driver gets to go home at the end of the night, right? At the end of the shift. And so I think that's something I think that a lot of companies should think long and hard about, and really think about incorporating that into their fleets. And that is a good stepping stone toward, okay, driver, whenever you're tired, you just hang out in the back of the truck. You let us do it. Hey, driver's going to have a hard time. Just hit autopilot and go make yourself some coffee. That one, it's going to take a little bit, right? But I think the younger cohort of drivers will be more on board with that, because they grew up with autonomous and self-driving and autopilot cars around, right? So they kind of trust the technology more. And in some sense, maybe, I used to be a long distance cyclist, right? Like riding 200 or 300 miles on my bicycle, not
in
like
one go.
Bicycle. Yeah, in one go.
A lot of miles,
with a tent and sleeping bag and everything. It's called bike packing. So yeah, last summer, I rode my bike across Iowa. It was like 800 miles. It was like a big party. It's called RAGBRAI. Every year it happens.
Oh, it's a real party.
I think it was like 30 or 40,000 cyclists that ride across Iowa during, I think it's July. It's freaking hot. But it's like what I would say like Sturgis is for Harley Davidson riders. Is like and like spring, like you take Sturgis and like spring break, put them on bicycles and go across Iowa. That's like RAGBRAI. Is so fun, but you need to be a little bit in shape to do it. But anyway, I stopped doing those long distance rides because I had so many friends, so many people that were in that sort of sport that got hit by cars and killed, and had a wife and kids at home and that sort of stuff. So I was like, I don't trust myself out there anymore. And having been at the place where I'm at now, being around what self-driving vehicles are like and capable of, and how intelligent they are, and how much they are actually kind of safer than humans. I'm telling myself, at some point in the future, when it's all self-driving cars out there and there are no humans behind the wheel, or at least the car's doing all the thinking and actions, I will actually feel safer being on a bicycle out there in traffic again. But today, like, the bike is hanging up in the garage. Like, that's kind of mind-blowing, right?
That is mind-blowing. So you're at the standpoint of, or no, you made clear where your standpoint is, but I heard something recently when I was at SMC3 actually back in January, and we had a AI keynote, and what they were talking about, similar to what you were saying, is that we have a lot more forgiveness for human error than machine error, though machine error is so much lower. So and that's kind of the what you hit right there, is like, once that's happening, I will feel safer, whereas a lot of people still want to be with all the psychos on the road. Riding down the bike lane in New York City thinking they're not going to get doored by some guy or gal who's not paying attention. So that is interesting. And I'm warming up to it more and more myself. Paul?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I don't know, just sending it over to you like we're on a news channel.
Where are you at on autonomous self-driving trucks?
Hold on, I got to feed the cat and I got to go to the gym.
No, I think
bicep day. Just bicep.
I think for me, I'm kind of indifferent to where that's going. I think where I'm more curious is where the actual efficiency gain is. Like I think, for me, like what you mentioned earlier, like, dock bumps at a yard, that makes a lot of sense to me. Like I'd like to see that really get dialed in. Um, Intermodal or regular drayage, right? I'd like to see like even like drop trailer programs that are short haul be able to be managed, right? I think that's really interesting. I don't, but I can, because I can see ROI there just because I'm in that space so often.
Right.
Of folks that are managing that, and like, I've talked to folks that are like, yeah, I don't know where these trailers are. Well, like, wouldn't it be cool if you knew exactly where that truck dropped that trailer and at what time, and it was time stamped, and you understand automation wise, right? I think there's a lot of value there, because I talk to folks that have no idea what's in their yard sometimes. Right. And I've even talked to folks that laminate a document and on the side of a trailer, and some guy walks around with a flashlight, early morning trying to go, oh, okay, wait, is this 103 or 117? Right. And right. And so I think for me, I think that's really interesting to me. But for the rest of it, I feel a bit indifferent towards like where that goes. Much more curious about like, it's more of a wait and see for me. Like I'd love to see some of the information about it as we deploy some of these programs. But in the meantime, I don't think I'd necessarily care too much if, when I see like a Tesla on the road and someone's got it in self-driving mode, which is pretty, I've seen that quite a few times when I was driving at a long distance. And I drive a truck. And for me, like, in a Tacoma, I sit kind of high up, and I don't really, the only people that I actually worry about are people drivers. I'll put it that way. Like, especially the smaller the car, the scarier is what I've found. Because you would be surprised, driving a big truck, even other vehicles I've driven that were larger, where you get brake checked by a Prius, and I'm like, do you not understand that it would go through? I'm going over you, like, right? Like
you will be my speed bump.
Yeah, and it's very scary. But no, I don't really have too much of a input on that piece. I'd say where I'm really curious to, like, a lot of my focus from an automation standpoint has been really like inside of a facility. Like Matt, like, you were at ProMat, like some of that stuff that was walking around. I mean, super interesting. Interested to see the efficiency gain again, right? Because you're looking at something, the more things in something, the more things that can break, right? The more complex a solution, the more points that you can have break.
Yeah.
And I'm really fascinated by, some of the autonomous fork trucks that I've seen, but that's kind of where my AI caps out on the autonomous driving piece. I'm more of a, I think that levels it out pretty well.
I like a healthy balance, because I do think about like running that Texas Instruments facility. Like I was saying, there was a big old ASRS in there, that everyone knows and sees, but they don't like telling what it is. And so that was, the whole little grid on top with robots picking up stuff. But if you think about the nature of semiconductors, they're tiny little things. So you can hold a whole lot of them in a small, like my facility was like 30,000 square feet. And I would go to like CSCMP meetings or ISM meetings or the trucking club. And they'd be like, oh man, I'm the manager of like 1 million square foot Amazon facility. I'd be like, cool, man. I got like 30,000 square feet, but $1 billion worth of inventory in there, because it's all little teeny tiny microchips. So, there's applications where it makes sense, but you're right. The being from the farm, being from the country, being able to fix anything with some duct tape and a zip tie type of mentality that I have. I like to balance the amount of tech that is involved with the amount of what happens when the electricity goes out, or this belt breaks. Like, what is our plan B? And the technology that has a plan B option that can go back to analog, or that can go back to a manual operating mode, is gonna like win a few more bonus points in my in my decision tree versus one that if things go down, it's like there's this technology out there that does like those library catalog things that will like move entire aisles, where it like parts the ocean and then you can go down the aisle with the stuff and get it. But it's like, if it's all sandwiched and closed and the electricity goes out and something and the gears break somewhere, you literally cannot get access to your inventory at all.
Do they have a hand crank or
the hand crank sort of thing? But this was entire aisles, aisles.
Big.
But anyway, it's like that sort of deal. It's like if this breaks, it's kind of like one of my favorite quotes by the great philosopher Mitch Hedberg that says,
"Oh man, after
says,
my own heart."
an escalator can never break; it can only become stairs, right? Like that's
convenient.
That's the kind of technology I feel like is in the sweet spot, right? It's like it's great when it works, and if it breaks, it's still freaking functional. It's gonna get my thumbs up all the day.
Yeah,
and how do you put that? Go ahead, Paul.
I think you touched on something I really like of saying, like, talking about small facilities. I think there's this interesting thing in our space where people are like, oh, well, this is a 2 million square foot facility. And it's like, yeah, the commodities you move and the sheer SKU count that you have is so large that anything less than this is probably on the smaller end of what you're trying to do in theory, right? Because you probably have 12 of these. I think it's really interesting, especially with like what we do over at Conduit. I've had at least as many conversations with small facilities as large ones, where the same amount of value is applied, because when you've got a smaller facility like this Texas Instrument facility you're talking about, the checks and balances is that much more important when you have a shipment that's a pallet, and that pallet is worth more than a quarter of that 1 million square foot facility that we were talking about earlier, because everything's a small widget, right? That have very low cost index. And
think of a Tiffany jewelry DC, right? Like right. That's the stuff that blows my mind, is like the beers, like what's the value per square foot, in that.
It's really fun to think about. It's also really fun to think about, like, from a process standpoint of, like, you go to one of those, like a facility's got microprocessors, right? Or something like chips, like you're talking about. And you're like, oh, well, what's the SOP? And it's very clean cut, right? And then you can go somewhere else where it's like, what do you do? It's like high velocity frozen food. And it's like, okay, well, like, that's a little bit down the rung, right? There's still very good checks and balances for things, but from a security standpoint, right, it might not be the same. And then you get all the way down, it's like, what do you move? It's like paper. And it's like, well, what is, I don't know, but we put it on that truck, right? Like, right? And it's interesting, the swath, right, of the swath of how contextualized people get on what they're trying to do, like how deep into the weeds they get for what they have to do and move.
Yeah, I mean, if you're slinging bags of mulch, not a whole lot of
no one's stealing that
discipline or SOP and whatnot going on. It's just how cheaply can we move these pallets in and out of this facility without breaking too much of it open.
Absolutely, yeah. And it's like, oh no, how are you going to break dirt, right?
Yeah, and that's what I used to that's what I used to do. Like my boss back at Blue Grace, and shout out Nick Klingensmith, he was my boss's boss. Anyway, he'd be like, look, I'd be going after like a mulch firm, like, dude, they got 10 loads a day, like blah blah blah. I'm like 25 and just trying to like pay my bills. He's like, ask him. He goes, whenever you call, he goes, first off, never call tier 1 products. Second, if you're gonna call tier 1 products, ask him if it has to move or can it sit there until the end of time, until they get the truck they need for the cost they need. And it was all, and I would literally ask that question. I go, could it sit there till the end of time? And they'd just be like, yup. I'm like, all right. So like you said, that massive difference, doing the same thing, same steps required, but just how important are some of the steps versus others. Very interesting. I say, Nathan, unless there's anything else you felt you need to bring up, I say we throw it over to a little bit of story time. Let's some of the, you brought a couple things up. One including a border crossing in Mexico. Please expand.
Sure.
Anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, let me hit up Supply Chain Social Club real quick.
Yes, do that first.
Under my name, and then we can do the toll booth.
100%. Plug it.
So Supply Chain Social Club is a thing that I came up with, I don't know, 9 months ago, I guess, give or take. And essentially, I've been part of lots of networking events. My favorite part of my job has always been happy hour of networking events, talking to people, getting to know folks. So at some point I was like, I just want to do a lot of that. I just want to be like the captain of happy hours in supply chain. And so found like an interface, a platform to do that. It was called remo.co up until recently, and they got acquired by events.com. But it's this virtual sort of bar scene or hotel lobby scene or whatever. It feels like you're in a video game where you can move from table to table. You can go from this bar to this little high top of 4 over here and go into that conversation, talk to the people that are in that.
Like virtual networking?
Yeah, it's virtual networking.
That's really cool. Okay.
I think so too. Right. Yeah. So it's like a it's like a, first person game, sort of like you move around in space. So it's not like being in a Zoom call and you just get put into random rooms,
breakout groups or whatever. Yeah.
It's pretty sweet. So it's actually the interface that CSCMP used when I was the president of CSCMP going into COVID time. We're all about networking events and facility tours and all that sort of stuff. So we had to take all those in-person events and go virtual with them. And everyone went to Zoom, right? And Zoom took off from COVID. And so we went to this sort of virtual networking thing that felt really engaging, really interactive. And then after COVID, everyone put all these like virtual meeting tools back on the shelf and went back to like kissing and hugging at networking events again. And so as I've been building the brand, Supply Chaney, and my personal brand, I've realized that people are super open to a Zoom call like this, or a Teams meeting or a Google Meet, and you just talk, you swap stories, you say what you do, learn a little bit, and then you kind of like let that stew a little bit. You kind of like think about maybe how you can leverage that relationship later or whatever, right? It's just all these intros. I was like, I can short circuit this whole system and do this at scale with this system that we were using during COVID. I can bring all these people together. I'll grab a license for the platform. I'll call it Supply Chain Social Club. I call it Social Club because it's not like the supply chain 30-minute presentation by somebody on how to make your warehouse more efficient club. It's the social club, which means like we do have some advertisers, we do have some sponsors and stuff. We do want to like get a little bit of revenue generated, but those sponsors and stuff have 5 minutes interspersed throughout the networking time, where it's like a 5-minute commercial break during the Super Bowl. And so, a conduit or revenue can come up and got 5 minutes, talk about your product or your service, right? And then everyone goes back to talking and drinking. That's it. And so we started with warehousing, with the Warehousing After Dark series, and I convinced Kevin Lawton to pair up with me and co-host and kind of collaborate on those. And those have been going really, really well. And in the last month or two, we've added more series. So we have a transportation one, freight focus for brokers and carriers and that sort of thing. We've got one for marketing and sales that we're pairing up with TMSA on to bring all the marketing and sales folks together, not to try to sell each other their wares, but to just talk high level. What are events that you're going to that are working for you? What's CRM working for you? Like, do you work with any influencers that you can talk to us about that maybe we can use them too? Like, how are you marketing and selling your products, right? As a practitioner of it. And then we've got a sourcing and procurement one coming on called The Source. And then we have a global trade one for the import-export global commerce. Then that's called Global Trade Cafe. So all of these I have different partners with that have an established community of folks or members in that space. And the Supply Chain Social Club is just the virtual country club in the sky that everyone kind of gets together at to have these networking events at. And so that I've been having a lot of fun with and building that out into its own little thing. I don't know what it is. It's a community, and it's kind of a platform, and it's kind of a everything burger. So just want to make a pitch for that. We have 4 events going on in April. We have 4 to 5 events every month with a different flavor. And so, that's it. They're free. We used to charge a little bit. Now they're free for all attendees for all events. So it's all about just connecting people to people and people to ideas.
Color me interested. No, that's a cool idea. I like it.
Yeah, check it out. I would love to see you there, and maybe Revanova's name attached to it sometime.
Maybe.
So, and then on the toll booth in Mexico story.
Yes, let's hear about
my
it.
wife and I, we were on vacation. We were going from somewhere south of Cancun, and we need to drive back up into Cancun to go get a flight back out. And you can go on a toll road, which saved you a lot of time. And so we did, but there you needed to pay in cash, and you need to pay like in pesos. And one thing that we travel a lot, but I really hate like converting currency and getting the local currency everywhere we go. I'm always just like hoping and praying they'll take my Chase card, and take a credit card. And so we went through multiple toll booths, and like one of the very last ones before we got into Cancun near the airport area, we were short, like, I don't know, a few hundred pesos or whatever to be able to pay the full 200 pesos or whatever that was the toll. And they would not let us through. Like nothing. There's no ATM. There's no like exchange, no cambio anywhere. And so
No cambio.
well, but we're absolutely not going to let us through at all, right? So it was like you're going to like back up against traffic for like half a mile, go on that exit and go the other direction, and then actually it's a toll booth that direction too. So you need to like drive through the jungle, get off of this whole tollway sort of interface. Crazy. So just took a second, deep breath, right? What do we do here? And I was like, you know what? Like we just need to set our egos aside. And I did. My wife was thinking I was crazy. I started just going car to car as they were entering the toll booths and paying their toll. And I was just like, knock on the window, sort of like wave, like, hi, I'm the dumb tourist. Can you donate any pesos, spare pesos for us to pay our toll so we can get through here? Like, there's my pregnant wife and 10 kids back in the car over there. We need my
Kids.
so anyway, so we were able to scrounge up enough sort of loose change from people to build up enough to pay the toll to get through. And fortunately, that was the last toll we needed to get through. So anyway, the word to the wise, or the little bit of wisdom to everyone, is just make sure to have enough pesos to get through all the toll booths in Mexico, or else it would be
That stressed me out. That stressed me out just listening to it. Like I'm a control freak, especially when I travel. So if that went down, I would be tearing my remaining hair out. Like I'm just imagining me with my girlfriend Emily right now doing that. I'd be losing my mind. Like I'd get arrested just because they would think I was a liability when I'm just having a conniption over I've lost control of the situation. Oh.
It crossed my mind. God. I mean, the idea of like throwing a fit like that and then just rampaging about it, and then them getting angry and throwing us in jail or in like holding her. I was like, it did cross my mind, but I was like, there's got to be, just think, right? Just think, there's got to be.
Yeah, you got to chill. Mm-hmm.
There's got to be a way. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's pretty wild. Any logistic stories that stand out from your time, either at SPI or just being a broker, or any of your experiences that are just something that you just can't make up? No pressure, but if any come to mind.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, actually, I do have a good one.
Oh, he's cringing. You got to tell it.
Yeah, so I mostly move heavy haul, big oversized freight, data center buildings and stuff. And so got a customer. I moved some stuff for them here and there, and then I got a call. I was headed to breakfast with my family on a Saturday morning, and the call was, Nathan, how quickly can you get a truck out here? There's a building that came off of a trailer in the middle of Dallas off of a interchange, and it slid off. This is a 100,000 pound building. It's 40 feet long and 13 feet wide that slid off, and it caught the median on fire, and it's blocking traffic, and it stopped everything up. And we need to like pick it back up, get it back loaded up again. And it's all destroyed now. It's $1 million, $2 million piece of equipment building. And we need to get it back to our shop. And so thankfully that morning I took my laptop for some reason, to breakfast or had it in the car. So I was able to go in there, call up some carriers, figure out who was closest, who's got the right equipment to be able to pick that thing up. And there is, and then as I'm sitting here eating, I'm on my laptop and I check the text cams and I look at the cameras at that intersection. I can see like the burn, the fire, I can see the building.
Oh my
and
God.
Actually, over time, I can see two big ass cranes getting set up on site with all the outriggers set up to be able to pick the building up off and reload it onto another trailer. But that, within like 2 hours, I think of that call had the right piece of equipment, an extendable RGN that was able to handle that load, get in there, get picked up and get it back. That was my kind of craziest. Hey, we really need, this is a hot shipment, literally hot, I guess.
It's in fuego.
Yeah, mucho fuego. So anyway, so that's like my sort of like story, I guess, to always kind of go back to whenever it's like, here's the craziest load I ever did. Yeah.
Just the fact that you had an extendable RGN in 2 hours.
That's
Oh my
when you got
God.
friends and you know everybody and you've got good relationships. It's a Saturday morning. It's like, hey man, got to get you up real quick. Can you
He wants to make a lot of money
pick
today.
up one of
Yeah,
your
you want to
drivers?
make some money? Yeah. People wake up on a Saturday for that.
Yeah. Well, especially in the heavy haul, oversized world. That's
Oh yeah.
You don't charge by the mile, you charge by the day, right? So, yeah, it's good stuff.
Very good stuff.
100%. Thank you for sharing those, Paul. Anything from you, buddy?
I don't have anything. Nathan's done. Nathan, you've killed it. I love it.
Well,
fantastic.
I could probably put like a fence post to sleep with the amount of talking that I'm capable of doing. So don't challenge me.
Oh no. I think you've absolutely nailed it. I'm so excited folks got to hear everything about you. For the folks that don't know,
I learned a lot.
You want to call out your social media where everybody can find you?
Sure. In most places, it's just Supply Chaney. And on LinkedIn, I'm just Nathan Chaney. And there's a couple other Nathan Cheneys out there, oddly. But I think I'm the only one in supply chain and logistics, though. So don't talk to that plumber Nathan Chaney or that attorney Nathan Chaney. They don't know what I'm talking about. Anywho, so yeah, I'm and we've got a little Instagram and LinkedIn and a YouTube channel. Oh, right, because all the podcasts live there, and then all my coverage of events, all the conferences I go to, that's all there on the YouTube channel too. So
very nice, very nice. I'm gonna have to take some. I saw some of your stuff. I'm like, oh, this production looks better, way better than mine. I'm gonna take some lessons from Chaney. Go to the school of Hard Knocks with Chaney. Anyway, but no, we appreciate it, man. So hey, to everybody listening, please be sure to check us out every other Tuesday at What's Domiciled on YouTube and Spotify for full episodes, and YouTube and Instagram for the reels. We really appreciate you for tuning in. Thank you for the support. Like, comment, subscribe, and have a great day.